On fire, our river's gone dry. The rich are getting richer. They've left us out here to die. Mass migration. We got no place to hide. Who's against us? Who's on our side? Are they too dumb or are they just in on it? Liars and cheaters, a red-hot grip. Ditch the gaslighting gas bag that speaks in code. He's a faker, a shaker, a pontificating pantload. In this house of mirrors, we've hit the wall before it's too late. Let's go. Come on, y'all. It's border to border and coast to coast. It's real, it's facts, and it ain't no hoax. It's Podcast by George, and it's showtime, folks. Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on in to another podcast by George. People that are regular viewers of my show know that I call that my drama intro, but these are dramatic times, folks, and it is because of, what I call the big three on the PBG. Let's get that on the screen. Climate, war, and healthcare. And climate is at the top of the funnel because if we don't do something, if we don't act, and I mean PDQ, and if we don't go big on climate, millions, billions of people are at risk. They could be dying. The rivers are drying up, folks. The lifeline of this hemisphere, the Amazon, is running dry, for God's sake. The only rivers that appear to be overflowing are the rivers of blood in the Middle East and Ukraine and elsewhere. I've been covering that on the show, but that's not what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about climate with this guy. I hope you saw the promo. He's back on the air. He's sounding the alarm. Chris Gloninger is starting a new show, and it's called The Climate Report, and this is all cool, folks. Let me read his intro here. Chris Gloninger graduated from Plymouth State University in New Hampshire. He's worked at stations in Rochester, New York, Milwaukee, WISN TV before becoming chief meteorologist at KCCI TV here in Des Moines. That's where I got to know him, of course. He serves on the American Meteorological Society Certification Board, where he evaluates weather forecasters from across the country. Gloninger's won 3 regional Emmy Awards. This guy's good, folks. And in 2018, he earned a Master of Science in Emergency Management from Millersville University of Pennsylvania. And he is now a senior scientist at Woods Hole Group. And he's got this new show, and it's called The Climate Report. We're going to be getting to that. I'm going to show some clips and stuff, but let's do our magic here. Clip a couple of buttons and say good morning to our pal, Chris Gloninger. Hi, Chris.
Good morning, George. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for coming on here. I'm doing great. This morning, I'm cold. We were down, I think, like 12, 13 degrees this morning. Monday, it was 80 degrees here. And, of course, I'm reporting from Des Moines here in the heartland. And Chris keeps an eye on us. This will always have a special place in his heart and mind. He didn't leave here because he wanted to. People that watch my show know why he left. He was at risk. His life and his family had been threatened. So he left Iowa and renewed his career out east. But here in Des Moines, Chris, now I know that you saw this. This is out of the Des Moines Register. What winter? Des Moines broke a 128-year-old heat record today. Now, this would have been on Monday. It hasn't been this hot in more than a century, the Register reported. Temperatures in Des Moines broke records, with temperatures at the Des Moines International Airport hitting 78 degrees in the latter part of February, according to the National Weather Service. That exceeded even the forecasted high of 75. And with the forecast, Chris, I'm following. You can jump in here anytime, but when I saw that forecast, I thought, I'll bet it gets warmer than that. I'm just thinking that it's going to. And it did. The previous record high for February 26 was 70 degrees back in 1896. It also ties Des Moines' record for an all-time high in February, which was set in 1930. Mason City, Waterloo, and Ottumwa also hit new daily records. And, of course, when that happens, then we get these red flag warnings about fires. And I know a little bit about this. I accidentally set a fire one time that about got away on me on the farm back in the day. I've told that story on the show before. Maybe I'll tell it again, but okay. So let's get Chris to jump in here because I wanted to get him to comment on this in particular. This is out of his Twitter feed. He says Des Moines tied the all-time record high for the entire month of February because of the climate emergency, says Chris. The heat is 3 times more likely? And then you're taking you're showing this climate shift index and then something from the National Weather Service here. And I got to be truthful with you, Chris. I didn't really understand this. Why is it 3 times more likely?
So it's using attribution science. So it looks at the climate as we know it, and then it adds in the human influence of CO2 emissions, and to show that since it's a heat trapping gas, how much more likely this heat was because of those gases that we've released with our burning of fossil fuels into the atmosphere. So it's a staggering 3 times more likely. Quite shocking. I think if you're reading something in a news article or you're hearing about it on TV in the news, and there aren't meteorologists that are connecting the dots, or there aren't reporters connecting the dots between the heat and extremes with climate change, that's journalistic malpractice. That is not telling, it's like covering a house fire or a car crash and just omitting the cause. You wouldn't hear a news story about a fire without saying, "Oh, firefighters believe the fire started, in a cooking fire, or somebody was under the influence causing a car crash." That's what you're doing when you cover this kind of heat and you don't mention climate change. And you have a lot of TV meteorologists, and I don't feel bad calling them out, calling out former peers and colleagues, rejoicing and getting excited about it. The fact is, when you look at these extremes, this isn't your typical January or February thaw. I enjoy those days too, when it's in the 50s and 60s, but that's within the statistical norm of what we can expect. But when you have high temperatures around 80 degrees, that is not right. That is not normal, and that's not something that we should be celebrating.
What about the number of records? That's the other part of it. I mean, these 100, 1,000 year all-time historical type events, I used to hear about these once in a great while back in the day, but it seems like every day with every weather event, there's a new record being set, and it just goes across the transom. Nobody seems to take any attention, but paying attention to it, I do. I think, man, you can't be having record after record falling all the time and consider it to be normal at all.
No, not at all. And the fact this is back to back to back winters that we've had extreme warmth is the trend. When I was out there in Iowa and I covered the derecho that happened in
Yeah.
December, I was hoping more people would have that aha moment that this isn't normal. While climate science is still working to find the connection between severe weather outbreaks and climate change, and there's not a lot of correlation there. But what scientists have found is that the days that we do see severe weather are big severe weather days. There are a lot of reports, and a lot of that's driven by extreme warmth, for example. So there are connections, but we just don't know how the level of those connections really are.
And you
But
meant,
I will.
go ahead.
What was concerning is, yeah, maybe we would have seen severe weather, but we wouldn't have had the greatest number of tornadoes in a single day in December, and that was preceded by temperatures that were into the mid 70s. And unfortunately, people just thought that that was a one-off. Well, last year we had warmth during winter out in Iowa, and now this is going to be the warmest winter on record. And people were pushing back with saying, "Oh, well, you're focusing on weather." Well, no, now we're able to connect those dots and show that this is 3 times more likely because of our emissions. But also, 1930 wasn't the warmest winter on record. This is the warmest year on record, or winter on record. And this is why we're tying it to climate change, this extreme heat.
And what comes to mind to me is some people would say, well, let's wait until we get 20 of these in a row, 20 winters like this in a row. If 20 winters like this in a row happen, Chris, we're screwed. I mean, we're tattooed.
But George, we've had 526 consecutive months where the global temperature's been above that long-term average. Yeah. So while it's not happening in your backyard, the fact is globally it is something that's been happening, and some people still will say, "Oh, this is a cycle. This is a natural occurrence. The climate changes." That's BS.
Yeah. Let's bring this up on screen. Now, this is from Matt Grunwald. He's a friend of the show, a viewer down in, he's in a larger market, Chris. He's down there in St. Louis. He says 86 yesterday in St. Louis. The all-time February temperature, 28 today. That was an all-time high. The 86 reading was 28 today with wind chill temp of 16 degrees. That's only a 70-degree drop. And then he goes on to say what you're talking about. Now, and again, he's monitoring St. Louis media. We're not just talking about here, in the Des Moines area. He says no mention on local channels about climate change, including print media, all types of media. People are not connecting the dots. And that's exactly what you talk about on your Twitter feed. Now, here's this, and we'll get to that part here shortly. This is this climate shift index. Again, I'm looking at this closely for really the first time. What's a climate shift index?
So that is the fingerprint that that climate change is having on our day-to-day weather when it comes to temperature. So again, it's related to if it weren't for our emissions, it wouldn't be this hot. Our emissions have made this kind of heat 3 times more likely, 4 times more likely. But I want to get back to that comment. And what's concerning is I think a lot of station management fear and are terrified that people are going to tune out if they hear about climate change.
Yes.
One of my good friends, Channing Dutton, who is a successful lawyer.
I've had him on my show. Yeah, Channing's been on. Yeah.
Channing's one of my best friends. And he said at the time, people are going to watch if they don't like it because they're going to be interested to know if you're going to be talking about it. They're not going to be people are going to be tuning out because you're talking about climate change. And people, I think, are just desperate into trying to be liked and worried about what their reputation is going to be if they talk about climate change. I mean, come on, get over yourself. It's your job to do it. It's your job to talk about why this weather is happening. And look, conventional TV news, local news is probably on its last legs because of every other source of media, including apps and now streaming services. Do something different and talk about climate change. You really don't have much else to lose right now.
Yeah, because in the final analysis and the little subtitle for my show that I promote at times, release the truth tellers. You're supposed to be a truth teller first and foremost. Now, Chris Hayes from MSNBC is kind of famous for saying the quiet part out loud on the air one time. He said, yeah, he knows, he understands the significance of climate change and what it's going to have, how it's going to impact all of us. But he says, every time I bring it up on the show, the ratings, you can just see the meter drop. It just goes down. The people that get it watch, but the people that don't get it or don't want to get it, tune it out. And that's Chris Hayes on MSNBC. So, yeah.
I like Chris, but I also think that, that's kind of a bullshit thing to say just because you're not telling it effectively. Then find a different way to make people care and want to listen. I mean, Adam McKay, we'll talk about Adam McKay and his production company, but his Don't Look Up movie was successful. It was a creative, outside of the box way to talk about climate change. And a lot of people watched it. It resonated with those people that watched it. So while I like him and appreciate his work and admire the job he does on MSNBC, if it's a ratings killer, it's how you're doing it. And there are better ways to do it. So it's not going to affect viewership.
Yeah, so Chris is leading the way, folks. He's a pro here. He's got the transition going for me here. Let's go to, I want to start talking about the new show, and I want to talk about Yellow Dot. Now, this is what Chris was talking about. Yellow Dot Studios, and this highlighting is mine, is a nonprofit production studio founded by Adam McKay, the Academy Award-winning writer, director, producer, known for Netflix's second most watched film of all time, Don't Look Up, as well as Vice, The Big Short, Anchorman, Step Brothers, Talladega Nights, and television shows Succession and Winning Time, to fight back against climate disinformation and inaction. So this guy knows how to make it interesting. He knows how to make it compelling. He can even make it humorous. We're going to get to that a little bit later on. Yellow Dot creates entertaining, memorable, and scientifically accurate videos and other media to challenge decades of disinformation pushed by oil companies and amplified by large swaths of elected leaders and media. By shining a light on the urgency, responsible parties, and scientifically proven solutions, we aim, says Yellow Dot, to empower more people to be part of the conversation about what we're facing and what we can do about it. And that takes us to the climate report. Now, the clips that we're going to show are from the test pilot episode of the Climate Report with Chris Gloninger and Maya May, a 30-minute climate news show produced by Yellow Dot. As the climate warms at the increasingly dangerous rate that we're seeing everywhere, everyone deserves to be informed for our safety, and we can be a part of the massive collective effort required of the singular moment. But due to billions in fossil fuel ads, I think about it, folks, and political spending, again, we're talking billions, the majority of news outlets have not given people vital climate information. Chris, this is what you were talking about. Only 1% of stories on network news cover the climate emergency. We need to change that. And I would say, Chris, and this is what you guys are doing, we got to change that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the fact that his executive producer reached out to me with this vision was exciting. And where does this go? I don't think any of us know. The goal was to shoot this pilot episode. We successfully did that. There have been a lot of views on social media. We've been kind of releasing it in segments. There's a long road to help chart the future of it. What happens? Where is it going to air? Is there interest to a wider audience? Hoping that this is going to be a regular TV program, a regular newscast that people can watch. But it's now the process of working out logistics, and we just don't know it yet. But just to be considered to be part of this was an honor, considering the work that he's been doing. I mean, if you look at the organic content that they create on the comedic side, by the way, this news is serious. It's facts.
Yeah.
It is Walter Cronkite days of journalism that, we're just showing you the way it is, and we're showing you the data and the science. But their other content, like Cobell Energy, was brilliant, following this oil tycoon family and their greenwashing methods, their story about being old Texas, good old boys, but really the guy, the new CEO is from Connecticut, like Greenwich, Connecticut.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes a mockery of the fossil fuel industry that we know it, as we know it. And he is such a gifted person. And so is his entire team. I mean, these are people that are devoted to making a difference. This Yellow Dot is his nonprofit production company.
Well, we are completely and effectively propagandized. And I tell people we live in a house of mirrors. How do you know that we're being propagandized effectively and completely? We don't know that we're being propagandized effectively and completely. And that's what Chris is doing, sounding the clarion call here. He's trying to alert people to what we're talking about. And I got to brag on myself a little bit, Chris. I was deeply affected, as so many people were, by the Don't Look Up movie, Adam McKay, that you mentioned. I've been showing this graphic when I'm talking about climate on my show a lot. And it's don't look down. I mean, you don't have to look upward for an asteroid hurtling towards Earth, as was in the movie. Just look at the rivers and streams. Look at the groundwater pollution. Look at the changing weather patterns and all of that. It's, don't look down, don't look around, don't look anywhere. I mean, put your head in the sand. That's kind of what the movie Don't Look Up was all about. Okay, let me take this off the screen here.
I like that.
Because what I want, don't look down. So here, what I want to do is I want to play the opening, and this will just last a few seconds, and then Chris and I are going to talk about it. This is the pilot here. Okay, so there it goes. It's just getting underway. And these annotations, the circles here are mine, Chris. There's several things here that I wanted you to talk about. Number one, this is a very professionally done, very elegant, nicely done set. And the screen behind you indicates that we're not talking local here. We're not talking regional. We're not talking even the U.S. We're talking about the world. And again, these things aren't by accident. They're by design, Chris. So this is your show is going to be a worldwide perspective.
Yeah, I mean, while we were shooting this pilot episode, things that you haven't seen and haven't been released were while we were writing this, flooding in Oman and Oman in the Middle East is a big oil producer. I think it's a top 20 when it comes to oil production in the world. And they are now seeing weather whiplash in the form of rain, seeing a year's worth of rain in a single event. And that has been devastating for them. And what I learned in some of my research is one of their top priorities, like the Ministry of Public Works, I don't know if that's their exact title, but they're working to help improve infrastructure because of climate change, so they can better handle and prepare for these 1 in 1,000 year flood events that they're seeing more of in a largely arid climate. Things going on in Africa and what Italy is trying to do to make it kind of an energy conduit without using any protections or guarantees with using renewable energy. And that's a global story. Yeah, I mean, it's a team of people that are trying to find the top climate headlines around the world. In journalism, we learn, and this goes back to the point of Chris Hayes, you start off a news story with your most vivid or impactful visual or engaging soundbite or visual aids.
Yeah.
And climate change is filled with that.
Yes.
Whether it's the apocalyptic wildfires burning across the Oklahoma and Texas panhandles, the picture that you shot, I mean, if you told that story and showed the Raccoon River and said, this is where your drinking water is coming from, that should shock and concern a lot of people. But these stories are endless. So, that's why it goes back to my point of, if you're seeing a drop in ratings and you're not doing a good job in your storytelling. So that it was the goal. And again, I hope this is picked up. I hope that this has more than just a pilot episode. I hope this is something that's regular, and we need people to show and express their interest.
To go back to this graphic with my circles here, I talked about the background. I'm looking at your desk there. Again, this is very nicely done. Good stuff. I don't see any logo here on the front of the desk. Bring that back up. I don't see ExxonMobil. Nothing like that. So I like that part of it. And then, of course, the very simply named, direct to the point climate report. I mean, this is not, we're not talking about the local weather here. We're talking about a climate report, Chris.
Right. This is that Walter Cronkite, old school, puts the J in journalism, kind of news that the way it was. And consultants, I understand how they're in this industry, how they're trying to change things up by making people more personable and using hand gestures to try to bring people in to watch. And a lot of that's corny, cliched, and maybe it does hold some weight, and maybe they have a point. But I was in this industry long enough where a lot of that advice is recircled multiple times, where they have to reinvent the wheel to make sure that they still have a job and make sure that they're still relevant. And maybe there's a place for these more dressed down, casual look appearances for anchors, or more of a casual dialogue on air. But the idea is, this is a serious issue. This is old school journalism. It's data, it's science, it's facts. And I couldn't be more supportive of it. And right. I mean, Adam's, I can't sing his praises enough, but he's a true visionary.
Yeah. You didn't have to do this, folks. A lot of those multi-millionaire Hollywood folks just take their money and run to the Hollywood Hills with it. Let me play this here again, Chris, and you can jump in here if you wanted to. One thing that I noticed,
Meridional overturning current is an ocean system that distributes warm and cold water around the globe.
Okay. I wanted to highlight this, the ticker at the bottom. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the idea was to have a look similar to what you would see on your typical newscast. Excuse me. So what you'll see is the current parts per million and CO2 levels, and what we call a bug, which is that little thing that usually has the time and temperature and the station logo. That is always on your screen. But on the bottom is the average global sea surface temperature, it's the carbon dioxide levels, and it's the Earth's energy imbalance number, which is, again, how much energy is coming in versus how much is being released back out into space, right? That's what essentially is driving our global warming. Yeah, it's just kind of reinventing the way news has been doing news and trying to find ways to turn it and convert it into climate news.
Oh, that's great. Now this is a little bit tougher of a question. It goes to, I know that you had to deliberate or think about this, and you talked about how this is very serious and it's old school journalism and that type of thing. Are you concerned or worried about the fact that you may be preaching to the choir here? People that watch this type of content are likely to be informed. They're likely to already be in your corner, as opposed to the people that don't like this kind of approach. They're maybe, I don't want to call them not serious, but they're not interested in this type of format. They're interested in, Twitter stuff as an example.
Right. I think you bring up a good point. What I always tell people is the one individual action that we can all do, or the handful of things, are actually free. It's not necessarily getting an electric vehicle or switching over to solar electricity and power in your house. It's simple tasks like voting for candidates at a local level, congressional level, or for the top office in the country that will take climate action seriously. Having conversations and talking about climate change so it's top of mind. So that is where I think this space will help. That action, where people may not be interested in watching it, the people that are interested and are interested in staying informed, these are your top climate headlines to help you propel those conversations, give you inspiration, give you the top headlines that you can engage with people. Maybe that skeptic in your life, you could say, hey, after reading this, the main current in the Atlantic Ocean is slowing and we're at that tipping point. That's going to affect people from England to Ireland to the northern part of the mainland of Europe. It's going to affect the food we eat. It's going to affect in Ireland, some of the cheese production, the wheat production. So I think it's a tool for people, and I think that there are going to be people that are curious. If this takes off and becomes a regular show, the curiosity of the haters that want to listen, and maybe they listen long enough to be engaged or at least ask questions.
Change one heart, change one mind. You talk about Ireland. You really want to have an impact on things. Make it so that the production of Guinness or Bushmills goes down by, then people will start to pay attention. Okay, one of the things that I really like about the show, not only is it educated, not only is it informed, not only is it entertaining, it can be kind of edgy at times. They've already in the pilot incorporated climate defiance. I love these guys. I want to play this just because I love them, Chris. And we'll just, this doesn't last very long. Watch this.
Just this past week, activists with climate defiance called out Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan for their investment in fossil fuels, $230 billion since the Paris Climate Agreement. Their calls to stop these investments were met by senior citizens wielding canes.
Brian Moynihan is one of the top 5 funders of fossil fuels causing the climate crisis. Brian, you are killing us and turning a blind eye to devastating suffering. We have one question. Will you commit to stop funding fossil fuels? Will you commit to stop funding fossil fuels? Brian, will you commit to stop funding fossil fuels? Just look me in the eye and answer the question, please, sir.
Led by Gen Z activists, these groups, including Riposte Alimentaire, Extinction Rebellion, and Sunrise Movement, are ready and willing to be arrested for a just cause. They even put it on their intake forms.
Is that any good? God, I love that stuff. I love climate defiance on a lot of different levels. Number one, it shows these are desperate times. I mean, we got to do something. And these young people, climate defiance, they get it because it's their future that we're playing political parlor games with. And that's what was going on stage there. The other part of it, I got to admit, we talk about the gerontocracy that runs this country a lot of time. I mean, they're literally demographically being people were calling for the cops to intervene, and they're being attacked with canes by some of these people. But I mean, boy, that's a great clip to show what we're talking about here. And I was really cheered by the fact that Climate Defiance has already made it into the pilot.
Yeah, so they are, I think, a terrific organization. I know that there are even climate scientists and activists that think that they go too far, but you know, look, the fact that people can get that angry over a blocked road or an event that needs to be postponed or canceled um, because they, they protest, they stage a protest. I actually took a screen grab of what happened during, maybe it was Hurricane Ida, the remnants of Ida, or Isaias in New York City that produced catastrophic flooding. And it was a Google Maps with real-time traffic, and it just showed all the roads closed. And I retweeted that. I took it and tweeted it, didn't retweet it. I tweeted it and said, yeah, those damn climate protesters blocking one road.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you can't get anywhere in New York City because we've seen a 1 in 1,000 year flood event, and people aren't getting pissed off about that. I mean, come on. That's what you have to really look at. They're doing one small, impactful, maybe it's annoying to you if you're inconvenienced by it, but the idea is we're going to see more of these events that shut down your roads, making it impossible for you to get anywhere, perhaps for days, because these extreme events are going to become more frequent. The magnitude is going to increase. And I think what they're doing is it's honorable. It's what they should be doing. And I'm very supportive of it.
Yeah, me too. I love those guys. Okay, now we're running out of time with Chris. We're going to have to do some quick hitters here. Let me see if I can get this to come up on screen. This is from his Yellow Dot Studios reposting this, the latest available data from Copernicus from February 17th. Copernicus. Okay, now I know that that's the dude that came up with the solar system universe, the revolving planet. He was basically your anti-flat Earth guy. Probably wouldn't be very popular today. That's who Copernicus was. But then they launched this satellite, I think, out of the EU, this monitoring platform. It just put the planet 1.55 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial baseline for the last full year, 365-day running mean. Seems like that should be worthy of a mention by some mainstream media somewhere. Hello? This didn't get picked up or reported anywhere, but I don't know. Can you put this into a context that guys like me can understand, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, this was one of the benchmarks that we were trying to avoid with all of our emissions goals and trying to curb those emissions, which are still going up at an alarming rate. I mean, we're supposed to see numbers going down, not up, for us to reach these goals that were set by the IPCC and the COP conferences that happen, and they're not attainable anymore. And it's disheartening. I joked, I retweeted that with a picture of what CBS News tweeted out about the high altitude weather balloon that was sighted again over the United States that was in the endless news cycle. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, they were busy covering that. That got time in the newscast, not a disturbing, concerning, frightening trend that we're seeing with the global average temperature that will have an impact on all of humanity. But we'll talk about that balloon again. That didn't get enough coverage the first time it happened.
And here's the thing. I've been doing my show now, my little podcast by George, about 5.5 years. I'm getting really exasperated. I kind of got into it a little bit at the beginning of the show, and this climate thing is at the top of the funnel for me. Climate war and healthcare. I'm waving my arms around. I'm screaming. I'm yelling. Now I'm just a little bit, just a small bit of the patchwork quilt of left-wing media. I get that, but it's like people are not picking up on what is being put down. And this this balloon thing that Chris is coming about, the first time around when that came up, I saw the first notice of that, walked into the room, it was on TV, and I said, that is going to be a giant nothing burger. They're going to find out that this is nothing. And that became a major news story and went on and on. Now, how can I know that? You know, just a McBoob here in the Midwest. How can I know that watching television in a split second, and these other people aren't capable of getting it? And that's kind of what you're getting at here with this tweet, with this thing. Honest to God, this makes the CBS Evening News and Climate. Did you see that graphic that we had up earlier? 1% of the newscasts or less are devoted to something that has the potential, and it appears that we're approaching it, to destroy humankind, for God's sake. I mean, it's an Adam McKay movie. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, literally covering anything and everything that they can, but the biggest issue of our lifetime. So
yeah, okay, man, we're singing from the same hymn book here. Now we're running out of time with Chris again. I want to get to this now. People say, well, what's Chris Gloninger doing out there? Well, he's doing this show, and then he's really busy. We had to reschedule this one, as a matter of fact, because all kinds of speaking engagements. This is coming up tonight. Tell us about this, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that there's a QR code, because it is open on Zoom. You know, I think cutting, and this is about 2 hours from my house, so we agreed that it would be best and more eco-friendly to just do it by Zoom. And it's going to be a talk on warming winters, and not just, you know, on New England. So if people are interested in what's happening in New England, but also across the nation with these warming winters, I encourage you to sign up and tune in. It's a great local cause. It's a nonprofit, Town Green, helping educate people on environmental issues, including climate change. Excited to do that. Was at an event last night and didn't get home until about 11 o'clock for a panel discussion with Green Pro Bono, another amazing organization. And that's essentially a group of attorneys who help provide assistance to companies that are making a difference in the world of climate change, helping them with those legal bills and helping them they provide them with legal advice to help the companies get off the ground and running. Tremendous organization. And so I'm happy to be doing this. And this is what I do, you know, just to volunteer my time, because I want to practice what I preach by saying something we can all do. And George, you can appreciate this because you do it, is talk about the issue.
Well, yeah. And Green Pro Bono, and that sounds like something our buddy Channing Dutton would be.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's right in his sweet spot. Okay, I talked about how the entertainment industry, how they're bringing this to bear. They're going to make this interesting. They're also going to make it funny. Let me play this clip. I want to play this because we're getting near the end here. It's only 39 seconds long. So watch this and we'll come right back.
Red Hook has the nicest little coffee shops and amazing street art. And
hey, gay guy.
How'd you know I was gay?
I want to remember this place before it's all underwater.
What? Underwater? I just got here.
I learned that Brooklyn is facing a huge problem due to global warming. A quick Google search showed me that Red Hook has been inundated with flooding since Hurricane Sandy. And that made me so sad. And since I really love my first 20 minutes here, I decided that I should be the person to help.
So things have been sort of fucked up here since Hurricane Sandy, right?
I spoke with climate reporter Samantha Maldonado about the plans that were already underway to save Red Hook. Red Hook has the nicest...
Okay.
It's Zach Shipman, great comedian.
Yeah.
Also a great storyteller.
Well, yeah. And it makes the point, and again, it gets all about demographics and current society and social media and selfies and phones and all that stuff. I mean, it's also 39 seconds long. That's all the longer it takes to tell that particular story, Chris.
Yeah, definitely. And I think all the comments just picked up on that. I mean, he's open with who he is, but the hey gay guy, I think, you know, that's memorable, and then people stay engaged because that memorable line, and it's something that they bring that with them, that story. So very clever, well written. He's a budding talent in the world of comedy in New York City.
And don't look up, don't look down. You saw the graphic that I had. I'm playing this on my show a lot, and it's Are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? Or we're going to get in the Wayback Machine here again. This is just a few seconds. Again, using humor to tell the story, putting this in context with the climate catastrophe. Here we go, folks.
Your Excellency, here's your water. What in the world's the matter? Your Excellency, I thought you left.
Oh, no, I don't leave.
But I saw you with my own eyes.
Well, who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes?
Chico, how do you believe me or your lying eyes? Oh, honest to God. I mean, again, it's a serious topic, but every now and then, I don't know if it's whistling past the graveyard, but you got to have a sense of humor, folks, or it will get to you. It'll break your mind. And it does depress me at times. Chris, you've been very kind to come back on the show again. I'm glad you're doing these great things. I'm going to watch the show. Maybe you can end here by telling us people how to access that and to follow you and give us a close here.
Yeah, just the Yellow Dot stuff. Follow Yellow Dot if you're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anything, any platform. Follow them. Tell them that you like what you're seeing or hearing. Your feedback is important, and if it doesn't get engagement, like what George is doing every day with his work and his podcast, these platforms or these ways of communication stall out. So we need the engagement. And then tonight, if you just Google Town Green and Cape Ann, CAPEANN, go to the website and you can sign up and get that Zoom link if you want to hear more about the climate tonight. So for you all that are listening in the Midwest, that would be from what time would that be? 6 to 7 p.m. So if you want to have the computer on, maybe stream in at dinner, you can learn a little bit about climate.
Cape Ann. Did I get let me see.
Cape Ann. Yeah, you got it.
I got
okay. What an E. You're missing an E. So Cape, 2 words. Cape Ann.
Cape Ann. Okay. My bad. Chris, as always, pal, thanks again. We'll check in again very shortly, but I really appreciate you coming on this podcast by George LiveLine.
Thanks for all you do, George.
We'll check in again very shortly. And again, folks, I always end by saying, if you like following Chris Gloninger, getting the latest, a little update here in the local context in particular, because, he's got that soft spot for us, but he's moving on to the world now with this show. And of course, he's out in the Northeast doing reporting there about their weather and climate. But if you like seeing Chris Gloninger and you remember him from being on in the Heartland, follow Podcast by George. You can do that very easily. See these videos on Facebook and YouTube. Now, if you're watching on Facebook right now, make sure you follow us so that you get notified of upcoming shows. On YouTube, you just need to subscribe, ring the notification bell, give us a thumbs up. Comments are always welcome, like Chris said, because we got to know what you want to see, what you want to hear, so that we can continue to tailor the show that way. And if you just like the audio, if you just want to hear these when you're out and about in your car or on your bike or jogging or, whatever the case might be, go to podcastbygeorge.com. Right there, you can see all of the platforms, and the audio platforms are all there. We have audio-only broadcasts on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, and places like that. It's all at podcastbygeorge.com. But that's going to do it, folks. That's going to wrap it up. That's all there is, and there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.